CJSW 90.9 FM is proud to present our 2025 federal election coverage. CJSW radio broadcasts out of the University of Calgary campus located in Calgary, Alberta, and we would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. The City of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6.
My name is Kamal Karimi, and in this episode we'll be highlighting how political parties in Canada will approach climate change and the environment if elected into power. These policies and commitments have been taken from the political platforms released by each of the parties with official party status in the House of Commons, namely the Liberal Party, Conservative Party, New Democratic Party, referred to as the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois, referred to as the Bloc. We'll start by discussing Canada's current status in regards to the environment, then move through major talking points within the topic and how each party addresses each point. If a specific point does not appear alongside the other parties mentioned, it's because we were unable to find anything within their platforms to add. We may not be able to cover each of the platforms in the fine detail they go into, so we have linked the platforms within the descriptions of each of these episodes. We encourage people to take time to read through those platforms, but you can keep listening to hear about some of the major points in regards to climate change and the environment. Canada's current status in regards to climate change and the environment. Canada adopted a stronger plan to address climate change in 2020, moving towards more aggressive measures to mitigate the climate crisis. This includes reducing fossil fuel usage and relying on renewable energy and promoting energy efficiency in building codes and vehicles. With this backdrop, environmental protection to address the climate crisis has become a priority in the country over the last 5 years, and parties have been integrating this stance into their platform. Major policy number 1, oil and gas and sustainability. Parties have been recognizing the explicit relationship between the energy sector and climate change. Many approaches to climate change and environmentalism include sections on how to promote a greener future while not undermining existing industry. According to the Liberals' platform, they seek to implement sustainable investment guidelines for every priority sector by 2026. This is coupled with phasing out fossil fuel usage by 2030 for government-owned buildings and ensuring these buildings are energy efficient by adopting the top tiers in Canada's Net Zero Emissions Code. The Conservative Party's platforms say that they seek to provide incentives to businesses to reduce emissions and promote clean energy technologies. They've also said that they're in favor of pipeline projects, including LNG Quebec. According to our research on the Bloc Party's platform, they seek to tax the profits of oil and gas companies and reinvest those funds into climate change adaptation initiatives. This is coupled with ending federal support to offshore oil and gas company exploration in marine protected areas. The NDP's platforms say that they seek to cap all oil and gas emissions as well as eliminate all fossil fuel subsidies by the end of 2026. This is a part of their goal to cut greenhouse gas emissions to be below the 2005 levels by the year 2035. Major policy number 2, disaster relief and attention. Following the devastating effects of the Jasper wildfires in 2024, disaster relief has moved to the forefront of environmental protection to ensure Canadians are taken care of in the face of disasters relating to increased climate change. According to the Liberals' platform, they seek to provide disaster mitigation and recovery funding. They additionally promise supporting those affected by lowering the household risk to floods and wildfires, improving Parks Canada's disaster response by investing in a well-resourced response force, and increasing support to farmers and ranchers by providing them with more efficient farm equipment to reduce emissions. According to our research, the Conservative Party have no explicit mention of disaster relief within their platform. The Bloc's platforms say that they'll work to protect people from Quebec's homes by demanding a federal reinsurance program, allowing everyone to benefit from reasonably priced insurance against recurring natural disasters. They say that they'll demand immediate and structural reinvestments in the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. The NDP's commitments propose establishing a national wildfire fighting force and increasing funding towards key infrastructure where disaster resilience is part of the building code. They also seek to establish an Office of Environmental Justice in order to address the disproportionate climate effects on Indigenous and racialized communities. Major policy number 3, carbon pricing. Canada has had a history of provincial carbon pricing mechanisms, but in 2019, the Liberal government introduced a pan-Canadian carbon price that established similar pricing across the country while accounting for provincial nuances. On April 1st, the pan-Canadian carbon pricing was repealed, with each party proposing their own approach on how to move forward. The Liberal Party repealed the current national carbon pricing mechanism. Alongside the repealing of national carbon pricing, they announced an emphasis on industrial carbon pricing instead. Within their platform, this is what they cover in regards to carbon capture and pricing. They promise to make Canada a world leader in carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology. They also plan on moving forward on Canada's 6 major investment tax credits, or ITCs for short, that support clean energy and technology. They plan on promoting fair competition with trading partners by developing a carbon border adjustment mechanism, supporting carbon contracts for difference, and becoming a leader in carbon removal and sequestration by establishing Canada as a world-leading hub for carbon removal and sequestration technology. According to the Conservative Party's platform, they promise to repeal all carbon pricing mechanisms, reform investment tax credits, or ITCs, to reward clean Canadian manufacturing and production to help lower emissions and fight climate change. The Bloc seeks to compensate Quebec $814 million, which they say is the lost share of the carbon rebate since it's been appealed. They say they did not receive this share because Quebec has its own provincial carbon pricing mechanism. Additionally, they seek to tax imports on countries without a similar carbon pricing mechanism. The NDP are promising to eliminate the consumer carbon tax, but keep industrial carbon prices. Major point number 3. Protecting the environment and promoting environmentalism. Each party has provided visions for how they plan on promoting environmentalism in the country beyond the corporate and disaster relief sectors. They've also outlined their plans on how to approach protecting the nature and environment that make Canada so special. The Liberal Party's platform outlines their plan to create at least 10 new national parks and marine protected areas, 15 urban parks across municipalities, and conserve 30% of land and waters in Canada by 2030. This is paired with launching the Canadian Nature Protection Fund to restore old-growth forests, protect carbon-rich peatlands, and protect coastal waters by matching contributions from stakeholders up to $250 million. They plan on conserving nature in partnership with Indigenous peoples by expanding the Indigenous Guardians program to include 50 new Arctic Indigenous Guardians. They promise to protect more fresh water by developing a national water security strategy and prohibiting their inclusion in trade deals. They also want to map ecologically sensitive areas and rehabilitate and mitigate environmental species at risk in areas expected to see more infrastructural developments over the next 5 years. They promise to champion nature conservation internationally by stopping illegal wildlife trade across our borders with modern digital solutions, ratifying the High Seas Treaty as soon as possible, and supporting growth of marine resource sectors. They plan on prioritizing natural infrastructure like forested areas and wetlands. Finally, they plan on connecting Canadians with nature by giving free access to national parks and historic sites for this summer. The Conservative Party say that they'll pursue environmental protection that works by ending the dumping of raw sewage into Canada's waterways, adapting marine protected areas, in their words, to ensure science, not ideology, determines where harvesters can land their catch. They plan on using Article 6 of the Paris Agreement to bring home jobs while exporting cleaner resources like Canadian liquefied natural gas, or LNG for short, and technologies to help lower global emissions. The Bloc Party's platform say that they'll push for investments in sustainable tourism, including adaptation to climate change, diversification of economic activities, international promotion, and a reduced administrative burden. They'll ask the federal government to triple its funding share for the Canada-Quebec Accord on Nature from $100 million to $300 million. They'll push for an immediate end to offshore oil exploration and all forms of marine protected areas. They'll ask for a significant increase in federal funding to combat shoreline erosion. They say that they'll push Ottawa to transfer its powers for freshwater navigation to Quebec and cities, so that they have control over the impact of boats on shoreline erosion. They will also press the government to immediately ban all non-essential uses of PFAs in consumer products and industrial applications. They'll convince Canada to sign a binding global treaty on plastics, in addition to demanding an end to the export of plastic waste and a rapid reduction, even abolition, of single-use plastics. Finally, they say that they'll continue their fight against the Chalk River nuclear waste dump. The NDP's commitments and approach to a cleaner environment is rooted in clean energy promotion and use. They seek to build an east-to-west interprovincial power grid to achieve net zero electricity by the year 2035. They also say they want to double public transit ridership by 2035 and re-establish bus routes in rural areas that they say have been lost after Greyhound shut down. They say they want to create a high-speed rail across Canada, starting with the Edmonton-Calgary-Banff corridor and Quebec-Windsor corridor, as well as achieve 100% zero-emission vehicle sales by 2035. In terms of environmental protection, they seek to pass a biodiversity accountability law to protect at least 30% of high-carbon, high-biodiversity lands, freshwaters, and oceans by 2030. As we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, there may be more policies and points made within each of these parties' platforms, so we encourage you to go read them, and you can find them linked within the description of this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode focusing on how major federal parties plan on addressing environmental concerns and climate change.
You're tuned in to CJSW 90.9 FM's 2025 federal election coverage. To listen back to full episodes, please visit cjsw.com or download the CJSW mobile app available for iPhone and Android.